question, with who? So I finally graduated May 2008, or sorry, that was high school, May 2015. That started looking in the job field. There were plenty of opportunities, but, many wanted 3+ years of experience. So it's really hard to find a junior pen test job. There are some out there, but there aren't very many. And then something else I kind of discovered is education's kind of downplayed. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But this did raise some questions. Is there a risk in education today? Is it risky to go and get an education in information security? And then the second part of that is there a risk for the community and the industry? So if we look at education, is there a risk for them to hire people with information assurance or information security or cybersecurity degrees? And I think the answer to both those is yes. In its current state, there is. The graduate risk, I actually changed this, but it didn't update, I guess. But there's a pay scale shift. So, you have this expectation of pay, maybe less. You have to move someplace with a high cost. But there's also the potential for massive student loans. So I'm fortunate enough, I went through Marshall, was a pretty good student, had some supplemental support from the government and some scholarships. Without it, though, the average student debt's about $20,000-$30,000. So you graduate with this degree, and are you going to get the money out of it? And like I said, the degree doesn't have much weight on your application. It doesn't have the same pull as if I would have just studied at home for my OSCP, for example, and taken it. Like, is the OSCP better than a degree? And I think in the current state, yeah, it definitely is. Gives you more of a view. But then I also wanted to take a look at employer risk. So if you're employing these information security individuals, especially recently graduated information security individuals, you have to answer these questions. What's the quality of the education? Was the program, very good? Well, what did they teach them? What skills were gained? And what skills are needed? So as you're getting ready to hire these individuals, we come across are you going to take the time to investigate and find out what the digital forensics and information assurance program actually taught the students? Or, any other of the programs out there. A lot of the programs available today, if you Google information security degree, you'll see most of them are online courses, and you won't find very many hands-on, in-depth, higher-level education courses. And I think that's another problem. But then I think there's also some industrial risks. So if we look at it as an industry, if we're expected to have 40,000, roughly, new employees or new, additions into the information security field, do we have enough qualified workers to do that? The field's pretty strained right now as it is. I know a lot of companies are backed up till, Christmas or further in their program or in their workload. So, we're coming up and we're finding that there aren't enough workers to cover this. And then that'll lead to a lack of security practices and programs. So if we don't have the workers to support our security infrastructure, then that means we're going to have to hire people who don't have that education level or may not have the skill set needed, which means our programs are not going to be as secure as they need to be, and that's going to lead to an inability to protect our, it could be infrastructure, your corporate structure, things like that. So this led to the core issue, I think, of the whole situation here is the reliability of the education. So if you go to Marshall University and you get a degree, how do we know that your degree covered, information security practices? How do we know that it was, worth the investment? How do we know that you're going to be a good employee and know what you need to know? So, how do we ensure the quality? So I want to first kind of do a little review. Why is this even important? Why look at education? Well, we said we needed an increasing need for skilled labor in InfoSec. We also, have almost 4,000 or 40,000 reasons to look at education now. Like I said, that job market is going to explode in the next 10 years, and I don't think we'll have the skilled force to fill it. And then finally, the only meme in this whole thing, what if I told you there was a 4-year cert for information security? Why don't we use the 4 years at an institution, as an industry, say, hey, we want to set a standard for this and train people? We have 3 years. Well, hold on, I'll go into that here in a second. But there's a 4-year window to educate and train people. You can do the OSCP, the longest time is a 90-day window for your lab. So if you can learn OSCP in 90 days, what could we do in 3 years, roughly? Because you got to get your gen ed. So, kind of like my proposal, my side on this is we should have the certified program for cyber ninjas, or something like that. You got to throw cyber in there so you can get federal funding. But notice that we're not certifying individuals. This wouldn't be, Shawn has a degree, and he also got certified in cyber ninjaing. We look at the programs being used. Like Marshall University would have a program that is certified or even backed by industrial standard group called the Certified Program for Cyber Ninjas or whatever. So when you graduate, you have a degree, but not only a degree, you have the background of a group of people saying, hey, they learned X, Y, Z. We can attest to that. And we'll talk how to set that up, or how I would set it up if I were in that position. So, what we're looking at is an industrial standard for education and information security. So, how will we do this? Well, first off, I think the industry needs to create it. I know we have the NSA, Certified Institutions of Education. There's a lot of them, but I don't think it's exactly what the industry needs. What would be really awesome is if you got some of the big players and even the little players in information security came together. Maybe the managers say, hey, these are the skills that we really want in a new hire. A junior level pen tester, they have to know how to program in Python. They have to know network structure. It'd be awesome if they had set up a Linux environment and a Windows environment. What if, go through all these criteria of, hey, this would be an awesome, and maybe just make a curriculum list. It wouldn't even have to be, super detailed. I don't think it would have to be, day 1 of class 1, you'd have to teach this, and day 2. But if they could cover broad topics in each class, or in the classes given to the information security, then I think we would have a better idea for education. When someone graduates, you have a better idea of what they would understand and be able to do. And I think we should also look at tools that we already use. So the OSCP, we could use that as a measuring stick. So maybe the 4th year of your college education, you take your OSCP. Can you pass it? If not, then maybe, the $30,000, $40,000 you invested isn't worth it. Maybe we shouldn't certify this program if the people graduating can't pass this test. And then I also think it's important to limit the number, because we don't want to do a lot of industries when there's a massive need, they create a lot of programs, and then they flood the market, and then there's no jobs. So I think we need to kind of look at it, we need roughly about 4,000 people a year, so I don't think we need to be creating 500 information security programs, certified ninja groups. But yet again, this is just kind of raising awareness. This is just my take on it. So I'd like to see what would happen if someone ran with it. But also, you'd have to have a way to monitor it. And these are like, yet again, my take on this. So we could look at OSCP rates. So when you get ready to graduate, can you pass your OSCP? What's the rate? If it's 90% or above, that's really good. If 90% of your students can pass the OSCP in their 4th year, then that means you've taught them the required skills to become information security professionals. And I'm not limiting to the OSCP. I think there's other programs. I think if we really started looking at education, we could also create like a subset of skills. I feel like if you say information security, that could be a pen tester, or that could be network monitoring, incident response. We might be able to branch out and kind of create little subsets. So we also do like a yearly analysis. So kind of survey the faculty, survey the students. Do you feel like you've learned something this year? What kind of skills did you pick up? Were you able to apply those? And I think using those 3 things, you'd get a really good idea of what kind of program is going on. Also, I think my girlfriend, she's in pharmacy school, and they use Camtasia. It just records the lecture, make it available online. If we were, accrediting it, or not accrediting, but certifying an institution, if they recorded all their lectures, you could randomly choose some just to make sure they were teaching what they're supposed to, which I think would be a good way to ensure that you're not putting your seal of approval on something that they just tell them to read the book, walk away. You don't have any hands-on. But as we look through this, who really benefits if there was a certified program for education? Like, what if Trusted Sec said, hey, here's a list of criteria. We'll put our seal of approval on your program if you meet it. Well, I think employers would definitely benefit. When you go to hire people, you would know that they would have a set of skills. So let's say Marshall has a new information security program, and it was certified by Trusted Sec, and they had to pass their OSCP as their final 4th year project. When you hire that Marshall graduate, you would know that they would be able to do a pen test, at least at a basic level. You'd also, generate more hireable people in the field. So you're not just like trying to find people to fill the gaps. You'd actually have more qualified people in the field. And you can also focus less time on training. So if we had this program, and you knew that they covered, Metasploit, and they would have a solid understanding of Metasploit, you wouldn't have to train new hires on how to use Metasploit. And this is just an example, but also this would affect the graduates too. So you'd have more confidence with the people who graduate. If you had a program that was certified, when they go to the Marshall and take the program, they would have more confidence that they would have the best education. And they'd be more likely to get hired. So if you had a program where you don't know what they taught versus a program that you knew for sure that they knew, they had a certain set of skills, you're more likely to hire the person that has those skills, or at least have been taught those skills. And then, like I said, when you graduate, you'd have a better idea of what you want to do too, because you'd be focusing 3 years on security. Hopefully by the time they graduate, they would know if they want to do pen testing, intrusion response, if they want to develop apps for pen testers, or Metasploit, if that's the way they want to go, or analyze malware. And then finally, for educators, there'd be a curriculum management. Right now, I know Bill Gardner on his last podcast was talking about trying to build a new program for information security. And they pulled in the business department and the engineering department. And he's trying to fight over curriculum for, between business and engineering over what should go in the information security program. And this is, I think we could kind of offset that as an industry if there was already a standard. Because he could come and say, hey, this is what the industry wants in information security. This is the, set of skills they desire. let's build a program based on that, and kind of fend off some of the filler classes, whether that be with engineering or business, or give them a clear goal and really kind of help the people who are in an institution of like an educational institution, a higher ed institution, build programs really tailored to information security and not tailored to the computer science or whatever field they want to merge it into. And I think as educators, this would also, or as institutions, it would graduate to higher rate. I think institutions really want that. When they have people who graduate, they want them to get hired someplace that kind of raises the prestige or the reputation. Like if all your employees or all your graduates in this program, 95% of them have a job in the first 6 months. That's really good. If you publish that on your website, you're going to get more people in. And I think it will also, like I said, boost the reputation of the institution, and increase in enrollment is possible, I think. As people become more and more aware of information security, there's probably a lot of potential out there of people who have no idea that this field even exists, who are smart enough to really contribute some great things. And maybe by creating this certification program, universities will focus in on it and kind of build really great programs. Let's see. We'll talk, potential curriculum. I mean, this is kind of like my outline. So, year 1, prerequisites, general education. And like I said, you have 3 years to fill in roughly 30 hours worth of classes per year. So that's 90 hours of classes for security. And that's a lot of time we could spend teaching people and kind of building up that the skill set, so when they do hit the job market, they're ready to go. You don't have to invest in a huge training program or worry that they don't know how to do an Nmap scan. You can hire them and roll them out. I think that kind of points to how, that's a lot of hours to spend. And then I think something else, when we're doing curriculum, you have to weigh the time it takes for a skill to be required. And that goes back to when we, if the industry came together and set a standard for education, you have to look at what can we train, and then what can we, or what do we have to spend a lot of time training, or what is something we'd rather them already know. So, some examples, programming, you could have a C++, maybe a low-level programming class. That way they can understand how memory management works, things like that. That way they understand how exploits work. Python, Ruby. There's a lot of potential in the programming. If you had roughly like 6 classes a year, or 12 classes a year for 3 years, that's 36 classes. So it'd be easy to teach. I think it'd be easy to fill in with 3 or 4 programming classes and really get a good programming background on top of having the core concepts. And that could include report writing, and that's a big one. Incident response, Linux. Really get a 3-hour course on Linux, really deep down, how does it work? Setting up Windows servers, Linux servers, configurations. How all we could build courses based on what the industry needs. And finally, we could let the institutions do what they're really good at, and that's research. So security research could become more prominent in institutions, which yet again would benefit both us and the institutions, because they'll get the grants and the reputation. We get the benefits of the security research. And they're already good at doing grants. They can write grants, but that would let us, build up the programs. And then finally, this would let the students have experience. So one of the ways we could do that, my idea is, use upper level classes for experience. Maybe we have 2 capstones. I know Marshall had 2. but have a purple team, like your red team, blue team. You have, let's say, 20 people in the class. 10 of them are red team, 10 of them are blue team on a virtual network. They battle each other for 3 months. That's all they do. And then at Capstone 2, you flip it, and they're battling each other again, except this time the attackers are the defenders, and the defenders are the attackers. This kind of gives them an experience in a virtual environment in a school, or at a higher education level. And then finally, you could also do instant response. Maybe, your university can't afford to have a giant instant response team. Maybe they have, maybe one person kind of looking at stuff. Well, what if you did, an internship program with the people who want to do instant response in that degree? Or, you could take them and have 5-10 people getting the experience and safeguarding your network, looking for things. So I think it would be a great program. You could really build something awesome. But really, we just need to get together. And finally, one of the last things I'm going to talk about is the cost. I don't think this would cost a lot. I think it would take a couple of big players to get together, create a standard, and then just have a small team kind of keeping it up, making sure that the curriculum goals are being met. I don't think it will take a lot, but I think there's a lot at risk. Because if we're talking a 38% of jobs in the next 10 years are going to be new, people entering the market, I don't know that we have the 40,000 skilled labor it takes to fill those jobs. So kind of to conclude, sorry it's a little short, but we have the certified program for cyber ninjas. There's huge growth in information security. We have a 34% growth in the market. It's one of the largest. I think it's third largest estimated growth in the United States overall. But that also means there's a huge need for skilled labor. I think we really miss out in the opportunity of a 4-year degree. That gives a lot of time to develop skills. To kind of, foster skills if they already have some. Kind of build on top of that student. But I really think it needs a standard. Because right now, anyone can create a cybersecurity program, and then there's some that you just read a book. You don't have any hands-on experience. And then, you have programs that don't do that. So when you're out there hiring people, you don't know what the program did. Do they have hands-on experience? Do they not? Do they read from a book? Do they even know how to boot a Linux box? Do they know how to use a virtual machine? I think in the current state, there's a lot of questions. So I think if we had a standard, something that we could certify programs with, it would greatly improve education. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns?
Two questions I was originally thinking of. One ago we addressed. One was how do you keep from becoming a rubber stamp organization, kind of like some of the ones that certify MBAs now. Mm-hmm. But having passed having get some other steps along the way, helps with that. How would you finance the organization that's doing the oversight?
See, that's something we'd have to come together as an industry and kind of figure out. I really, like I said, I don't think it would.
Oh, you're away from the microphone, by the way.
Oh, sorry. I like to wonder. I think, it would take a lot of money up front, but I think you could phase. I think it would save you money and time in the long run if we can get some support from the bigger industrial players, maybe to kind of look at this and be like, hey, we can cut training costs because the standard will help eliminate some of that. Plus, our workload, we can handle more clients because we'll have talented people who can do this. But I really think it would be achievable with a really small team, especially if you're doing using things like OSCP. So all you'd have to do is look at the number of students who graduated versus the number of students who took the test versus the numbers that passed. And then, if you're just looking at Camtasias, you can do that remotely. Hey, you have to have at least a couple lectures online every year for us to look at and make sure or your whole lecture, and then we just look at a couple to verify that you're teaching. But the cost part, I think right now I just want to raise awareness, and then maybe we could get a small group together and kind of iron out all these small details. I don't even know what the industry would want in the course load. I gave some examples, but I think there's still a lot of work, but I don't want to be, I think as an industry, if we don't look at it now, in 5 years, we're going to be, 10, 20,000 people short. We're going to have to look at non-skilled labor and kind of try to fill it and teach and run with these people who, may only, know how to do server admin and not really security. And that's what kind of scares me, is we're going to get so far down, we're going to be out of our, we won't have the skilled labor to kind of fill the jobs.
I worry about purely security programmers, people who they learn how to learn all the tools, they'll learn stuff like Nmap and Nessus and EDCAP and Metasploit, but they don't know how to administrate the server. I knew someone who, very good pen tester in general, but he popped a box once, but he didn't know where INET Hub, he didn't know where the web pages were actually kept.
Yeah.
So if you haven't done any actual administration work or even help desk work or something else in IT or going into security, it seems somewhat limiting. I can pop a Linux box, but if I don't necessarily know all the commands inside of it, I can be root and I still can't do anything.
That's why I think a good security program wouldn't just be here's how to use all the tools. I think you'd also have to look at, I think it would be ideal to have a class on just network admin on setting up servers and setting up Linux and Windows servers, and that way and maybe even a domain. You could virtualize a domain and go through how to set up the domain controller. And that way you have a better understanding of how these things work. And I think the more hands-on you can make a program, the better too.
Because from the hiring side, if I at least know what you know,
Mm-hmm.
I then know what I have to train to get you in.
Mm-hmm.
And if I know, okay, you're not afraid of the Linux command line, well, okay, I can teach you the stuff I need you to know for Linux.
Right.
But I got to have everybody kind of want to take charge.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the things I've run into with people coming out of college. That some of them do a lot, some of them didn't.
Yeah, and I think that's a big problem right now with education, is you just don't know what the program teaches. You have no idea what they're comfortable with.
If I was giving go ahead. I'm going back.
Let me ask a question for a second. So you're saying that you didn't learn how to set up servers and...
No, this is a general talk, Bill, not...
that's something we try to do. Did you have protocols and administration for me?
Yeah, I was in the bowling alley analogy class.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We've actually tried to beef up the administration class so we're actually configuring machines, to inherit a network.
Yeah.
There is problems with setting up an Active Directory domain, even in a virtualized environment, because you don't want to screw up Marshall's network.
Yeah.
That's the reason we don't do that. And I've never found a way of doing that, mainly because the infrastructure doesn't
support it.
So that's the reason for that. We are also hamstrung by things such as budget, resources, so that's part of the issue. And as we continue to defund higher education in this country, including in West Virginia, where we've just taken another cut mid-year, where we're getting to the point probably of laying off people, because that's how far we've cut around, I believe it's around 20% of our budget in the last 4 years.
Yeah, I know it's real bad.
So anyway, I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
The other thing is we're now planning a cybersecurity degree program, and depending on who you talk to in this process, it looks like different things. To engineers, it looks like an engineering degree. To the business, the MIS people, it looks like a business degree.
Mm-hmm.
To us, it looks like a degree that's more what we call information assurance, is the way we teach it. So there are struggles inside of academia itself. And we also have competing accreditations. You have ABAC for engineering. You have the NSA designation the NICE framework for education, and then you've got, on the digital forensics side, you've got BPAC. And they all don't say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway.
Yeah.
I'm glad I could just burst in and just disrupt your talk.
You just every time?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Just less allowed in class.
Yeah, everyone's like, "Where's Bill?" And then he just like wanders it.
Out there is getting qualified people to teach. No, not a. Right on you, Bill. A lot of people don't have. A lot of teachers I saw, at least in my master's program, didn't seem to have a whole lot of real world experience.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I know this doesn't apply to Bill because Bill's worked in the outside world. So I'm going to bash professors for a while. Deal with it.
That's fine.
This doesn't apply to Bill. We love Bill.
Best talk ever.
But they had no actual experience in the IT world. They just basically got the degree, got another degree, and started teaching. I had to explain what pen test was to people. I had to understand. I had to tell them why something having Black Hat edition on it wasn't necessarily bad. It just came from the Black Hat conference. I had to define what a USB hub was to someone else. It's just some don't have any actual real world experience, and the people you end up getting to teach these classes are one, people who do it adjunct just because they enjoy it, because adjuncts don't get paid crap.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard. You're not going to make a living being an adjunct, really. They don't get paid crap. So the people who are doing it who actually have work experience, it's because they love teaching.
Yeah.
But a lot of people wouldn't be able to get tenure track, because to be tenure track, most of the time you have to have a terminal level degree, so probably a PhD. And unless you have tenure track, you really can't make a career out of teaching.
Mm-hmm. So it's just a big loop of.
So and I'd say there's not. I agree with him wholeheartedly. In that we have people who've been academics their entire life, and they have a different view of the world than people who've actually done this for a living. But also, I think information security as a career is changing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everyone in this room is probably self-taught. That's changing. I think that in the future, you're going to have a degree. In the same way that doctors followed around other doctors in the 14th century, putting leeches on people and letting blood until they either died and got better. You know, we're going to move from a situation. Abraham Lincoln, he actually he is a vampire, by the way. He actually followed around another lawyer and apprenticed until he became a lawyer. Those are now professional degrees. There's a professional degree program. For InfoSec to be an actual profession, unfortunately, however you wake up, though Adrian's no fan of academia, and that's fine. But I think that eventually we're going to have to become a profession. There'll be a professional degree that you'll need to get to certify or qualify to be an information security professional.
I think so. I think we're getting really close to that pivotal point. Like I said, if you know the Bureau of Labor Statistics is right, and we have an explosion of a 34% growth in the field.
The flip side of that is that I don't know that information security or cybersecurity, whatever you want to call it, these educational programs are doing much to actually fill the knowledge gap.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we were talking about, is creating a standard. Like the industry creates the standard for education.
Well, when we have some out there, like I say, but they're all competing.
Yeah.
They're different depending on which view you come from. And I think that when you talk about the field of information security, to the engineers, you're talking about building hardware and programs.
Mm-hmm.
That's not information security.
No.
To me. The business people, you're talking about risk management, which is kind of information security to me, but I think it depends on how you look at it. And the other thing is that I think that industry and academia needs to talk to each other instead of.
It's almost like someone gave a talk on that.
Really?
No, just yeah. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the talk. Is like I know. Yeah, hold on. I'll go back. Let's. Can we just start over? Can we just start over?
No, this is similar to a talk I gave besides Asheville.
Yeah, I mean, I really think like they have to come together and build something before it's too late, you know. And I think it has to be together. I think unless the information security industry comes together and says this is what we want, you're still going to have the business college, the engineering college, all these colleges saying, well, this is what really information security is. And I looked at some programs on the NSA certified list.
Yeah.
Like, I went to one university, and it only had 2 security classes to be certified as a... And I was like, I know I can't learn everything I need to know in 2 classes. So I was like, that's just not possible, so...
I don't think you're going to learn everything you know by going to college anyway.
Well, no, I mean, if we're honest, information security is a continual education.
The other thing I have to say is
everything.
education is a Swiss Army knife.
Mm-hmm.
I have degrees in political science and journalism, so which makes me perfectly qualified to teach information assurance. But the idea of education is to make you a well-rounded person beyond, it's not training. Training and education are 2 different things. Education gives you the tools so that you're exposed to many different things so that you can do many different things. Training tends to focus specifically on one set of skills. That's what community college is for. And you only learn those sets of skills. You don't take courses in critical thinking, composition, writing, public speaking, exposure to humanities, etc., in a vocational program. And I think there are 2 different things. People need to make that distinction. I don't know that everyone does.
I think, a lot of it, too, is, we have an opportunity to really get a real, well-rounded program in a 4-year degree. It's just getting somebody to step up and say, hey, this is what needs to be in it.
We're working on it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know. I listen to your podcast, so.
We're working on it. We may actually have 3 different tracks. One engineering track, one information assurance track, one business track. By the time we get down, we're working on the core right now. So.
And I should say this, I forgot to mention this in my disclosure, this in no way, my talk did not represent Marshall University. I actually feel like I got a really good education. I enjoyed my experience there. But I am looking overall at the future of information security. And, the fact that if I type in information security degree, the top 5 are online universities that...
That's the problem.
Yeah. So...
That's where also all of our terminal degrees are coming from.
Yeah.
For information security, or cyber.
Yeah. And any other comments, questions?
Security companies or exist.
I don't know that they really broke it down.
They just basically say the career is going to grow by 35%.
Yeah.
The reason I asked when you say you're getting paid money anymore, so just because there's a good job doesn't make it a good job for everyone.
Yeah.
They may be moving.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, that's
Over to
Well, I think that's something we, as an industry, need to look at. Do we really want people who don't know anything about security filling security roles? And I think if we don't, use education as a way to say, hey, this person is actually, that's what they learned. It's security stuff. This is who you want to hire. If we don't do that, then you're going to have, we go back to that step-down process. If you don't have security-educated people, you're going to have weak security programs and policies. If you have weak security programs and policies, you're going to have, an inability to protect your information.
I also think there's an issue with starting salaries in InfoSec, and I'm not sure how you address that problem, but a lot of people who go out in the job, you probably covered this in talk. Starting salaries are not what they should be.
Yeah.
At this point.
And I think a lot of that is
Depending
just...
on the organization.
There's a risk with it. You don't know what they know. So do you know what kind of person are you going to get out of it? If they have a 4-year degree in cybersecurity, what does that mean? And I think as an employer, that's kind of scary. So you kind of want to keep the salary low. That way, if they end up being a dud, you don't have all this money going to someone who had a cybersecurity degree but never actually popped a box.
It might not be bad if you were to do something there. They will bring you in low. What you do, then we'll bring you up. But they don't do that.
Yeah.
You go, okay, you're low. If we give you a salary, we get less profit. No. And that kind of a disincentive discourages people from going into it because it's like easy.
Yeah.
That's college debt, like $30,000
Yeah. The average student, that's...
In Maryland, we have a lot of defense contractors that don't partner with colleges, but they're doing it mostly to get interns. They're looking, they want it as a way to just have access to people that will work cheap just to get a few credits at community colleges.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really look at what is the school teaching.
Yeah.
Just access to low cost labor.
Yeah.
And if they get more involved in it and say, hey, we'll work with you and we'll take some of your students because we actually trust what you're teaching and the students are going to be useful to us.
Yeah.
That would be, they've got to change the motive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, like, we're not, if something like this were to happen, it wouldn't just benefit big industry. I think even the small businesses, the small security consulting firms, if you knew that the program was certified and they at least knew, this basis, this basic level information security stuff, you'd be more comfortable hiring people from that program. But I think as a industry, we kind of need to look and see, kind of at least think about it, because I think there's going to be a lot of growth, and I'm really kind of afraid that we won't have the skills to meet it. And then what does that lead to? I like my power on, so yeah.
Probably part of a problem with academia, with teachers. Yeah, you're teaching.
Some of them are paying too much.
Yeah.
Well, some of them make it damn good money. It's also whining about, who all can get job or who is most privileged class. This person's making I want to say 120 a year in a fake university job.
Well,
they're tenured and all that. Adjuncts do get screwed, but that's one thing.
I'm not people that are passionate about the field would be doing the teaching as opposed to the ones that
I challenge you to find a professor that is not in medical school that is making over $100,000 a year in a 5-state area. I don't.
They're all. I Bloomington.
I took a pay cut to teach.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, in IU Bloomington, they are.
Bill's like, where's this at? He's like taking notes. Google Maps.
you want to get people out of the field, go back to teaching. Get paid from.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
we're not stupid people. We're not going to
I'm not convinced they want people out of the field to come back to teach. One of the issues you have with that is you have to have at least a master's degree. I'm in a situation where I sort of fell into this, and it works for me, but I think there's going to be demand for people with terminal degrees. And where do you get those terminal degrees right now? Presently, in an online university.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the only place you're going to find a terminal degree in the field. So it is a challenging situation.
Well, guys, anything else? I appreciate your time. If there's nothing else. Thank you.